All right, so today we're going to go over a real quick intro to loops. So there's a few different kinds of loops in C++. We're going to go over the for loop, the while loop, and the do while loop. Okay, and there's different times and cases where you're going to use each one. So we're going to use a really simple example. We're just going to count to 5. I mean, it doesn't get any easier than this. So let's go ahead and start a new project here. We're going to open folder. Of course, it doesn't exist yet, so we're going to make one. Whoops. Let's go here. Let's call this, we'll call this loops. Okay, go ahead and select that. Okay, we need a main, so let's make it main.cpp. And we're dealing with a console, so we're going to include our IOStream header. And then standard int main. And return 0. Standard boilerplate stuff. All right, so first one, let's do a for loop. Okay, so I'm going to print out a little deal here each time we change what kind of loop we're doing, so we can see it in the console. So I'm going to see out. Oops. Gosh. We're going to say for loops here. And I'm going to hide this, get a little more real estate. All right, so now in our for loop, it's structured like this. So for parenthesis. Now I like to put some spaces in here just to help me read it. So we need a variable to hold our counter. Okay, so in a for loop, we're going to basically cycle through a list of numbers. So integers between one number and the last number. So you can either count up or you can count down. You can skip numbers. There's a whole bunch of stuff you can do, and I'll show you. But the easiest one and the one that's typically you're going to see the most. We're gonna allocate an integer right here. So int. We're going to use I. You're going to see the letters I, J, and K used a lot for counters. Okay, so we're going to set this equal to 0, and then end it with a semicolon. Okay. Now you don't have to allocate it here. We could have easily put it up here. Equals 0, and then just refer to it in here. Okay, but just to keep it concise, we're gonna put it in here. Okay, so int I equals 0. Okay, now we're starting at 0, so where do you want to end? In our case, we're just going to count to 5. So we're going to say I is less than 5. This is our condition. Okay, so we're going to start at 0. We go to 1, 2, 3, 4, and then when it gets to 5, 5 is not less than 5, and it'll quit. It'll fail. Okay, and then because we're counting up in our case, each time we cycle through this loop, we're going to increase the value of I by 1. Now, the long way to show this is we could say I equals I plus 1. Okay, but that's a lot. In C++, there's a shorthand version of this. So the equivalent of this is literally just I plus plus. Okay, which you might notice this is similar to the name of our language, C++. So C was the early version. It was done in the 70s, late 70s, and C++, which is C with classes, is basically the newer version of C. It's got more. So hence the C++. That's where that comes from. Anyway, we're going to put our brackets, curly brackets, and then what are we going to do each time we go through a loop? That's what's going to happen between these two brackets. Okay, so in our case, we're just going to print the value of I. So, whoops, gosh. Okay, super simple. So if we were to run this real quick, let's do it. Let's just compile this. So let's go here, terminal. Let's compile this. So clang plus plus. Okay, so we're going to feed our Clang compiler this main.cpp file that we made, and we're going to output an app.exe file. Okay, hit enter, boom, done. So that file is right here. An easy way to get it, we're going to just type app.exe, and then sure enough, you're going to see 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now remember, we said I is less than 5. If we wanted it to count all the way to 5, whoops, you could do something like this, less than or equal. Okay, so if I just do that real quick, save it, compile this again, done, and let's run this again. You'll see counts to 5. Okay, so let's just leave that. We'll do it. So another loop that we might do is a while loop. Okay, so it's structured like this: while, and then in these parentheses, this is going to be our condition. So while this is true, what's ever between these brackets, as long as this is true, this while loop will just run forever. Okay, so we got to be a little careful with this. So while whatever in this bracket is true, it will run whatever in here. And as soon as whatever in this bracket, parentheses will fail, then it exits out. So we're going to count to 5 again here. So to start with, we need a counter. Okay, so we're going to use j in this case. So int j equals 0. Okay, and then in our parentheses, we're going to check if j is less than or equal to 5. Okay, makes sense? And then this is the part that's going to get repeated over and over again between these curly brackets. So cout j new line. Okay, now here's the kicker. Currently, right now, this while loop will just continue to run forever because j is never, it's always 0. We never change the value of j. So what we need to do is each time we run inside our loop, we need to increase it. So j plus plus, we're going to make it increase by 1 until this is no longer true. So as soon as j equals 6, this thing is going to fail and it's going to go down to the next line. Okay, so if we want to run this one, let's just compile this real quick. Yeah, let me hide this so I can get more room. And you'll see, oh, actually, you know what I needed to do? I needed to do what I did here. So std cout. This is a while loop, so you can see it. Okay. Let's go ahead and compile that again. I'm just going to cheat and move up the list. Run it. Sure enough, we have 2 loops that give the same result. So 4 loops. Here's our while loop. There's one other loop I want to go over. I'm going to close this. And that's the do while loop. So where this is handy is if you want your loop to run at least once. Okay, so let's say j here started at 6. Okay, well, j is not less than or equal to 5, so what's in here would never run. If you have a scenario where you want to run something at least once, you would do a do while loop. So I'm going to do that here. Now I want to show you also a neat little feature of VS Code. So if I write, in this case we're going to do a do while loop, so I'm going to write do, do. Okay, now you're going to see VS Code has pre-populated this list. There's one with a square. Now this is a pretty trick. If I click that, you're going to see it's kind of inserted some boilerplate code that would make up the syntax for a do-while loop. This is kind of handy. It does this for all of them. So if I did a for loop, you can see the little for with a square, boom. And you'll see it has stubbed out a bare bones for loop. Now again, we can change all this, but you can see the format of it right here. So I'm going to get rid of this. Now, in this do while loop, let me put my little marker so I can see it. So std cout do while loop. Okay, so in here, again, we're going to count to 5. So we need a counter. So int, let's use k equals 0. Now I want to see out the value of k. Say k okay. Now it's going to do this while this statement is true. Okay. So, but it'll do this at least once. So it'll do this and then it checks the while loop part. So we're going to say k, whoops, k is, gosh, I'm having a hard time here. K is less than, what did we say? Less than or equal to 5. Okay. All right. That should quit freaking out. All right. So here is our basic do while loop. So do, see out the value of k, then go to the next line while k is less than 5. Okay. So let's go ahead and run all of these. So we should see our for loop, our while loop, and our do while loop, and they should all count to 5 starting from 0. So let's go terminal. Let's compile this thing. Oh, I just realized I made a mistake. I got an endless loop. What did I do here? I increased the value of j by 1, which kept, once this value was 6, it broke out of the loop. I forgot to do that here. So I had what's called an infinite loop. So that thing would just continue to run forever. So let me put that in here, k++. Let me save it. Go ahead and compile this. Clang ++ main.cpp. There it is. Sorry, you can see me make mistakes. So here's our for loop, 0 through 5. While loop, 0 through 5. Here's our do while loop, 0 through 5. Okay, so that should give you kind of a bare bones intro to loops. There's a lot more to these, but for right now, this is going to work just fine. Okay.